Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my ranking of the Pierce Brosnan James Bond films. Yes, I've reviewed them all. If you want to know my in-depth thoughts, do check out my reviews for each one of those films. But I did this with the Sean Connery movies and the Roger Moore movies, so I'll do it with the Brosnan movies too. Let's put them in order of favourite, starting with worst and working my way to the best. Yeah, you know the drill. 4 films. At number 4, definitely the worst of the bunch, possibly one of the worst Bond films. It is, of course, Dying of the Day. A film that actually, the last time around when I watched it from a review, did improve considerably. Went into it having no expectations other than it being bad because of previous experiences, and being a bit more objective, trying to review it, a scene by scene basis kind of thing. It's actually a film that is of two halves. The first half being a really bloody good Bond film. It's just, if the last half had have been as good as the first, it would be up there. It would be an awesome Bond film. Unfortunately, it takes a nosedive, severe nosedive, halfway through, and just, totally loses it. Still an entertaining film. Just about a good film, just because of certain elements in it. But I totally get why anyone would just say, nah, no thanks. It's just, but it is all in that last half for me where it loses it. So yeah, Dying of the Day at number 4 with an absolutely terrible theme song by Madonna as well, must be said. And number 3 for me is Tomorrow Never Dies, a film that I really loved back in the day when I first kind of got into Bond films, thanks to Goldeneye. I really liked it, but it's one of them movies where over the years, the more I watch it, the more it hasn't quite aged all that well. Mostly in the story and character department. The action sequences still hold up, mostly because it's practical effects. There's a lot of practical stuff going on in this film, which I really appreciate, and I really like the character played by Michelle Yeoh. I think if we've ever had a side character, a Bond girl that deserves a spin-off movie, her own franchise, it would be this one. Definitely not Halle Berry's character Jinx from Die Another Day, which was rumoured at the time. Good action set pieces. I like Brosnan in the role. I think he's relaxed as Bond. He's really into it now after Goldeneye. So yeah, it was good. It's just the villains are terrible. The really weak villains. The main villain is just a bit, whatever. You're just Rupert Murdoch, and his underling, his right hand man, is just the most generic you could get European bad guy with blonde hair, and it's just like, whatever. It's just average, just maybe slightly above average. It's not a terrible Bond film by any means, and if I'm doing a Bond run, I will watch it. If I'm watching the Brosnan era, this isn't going to be the one that I skip over by any means. I just think that if you'd have taken like villains of the quality we had in Goldeneye, put them in a film like this, we would have had a much better Bond film. Number 2 for me is Goldeneye. This would have been my number 1 at one point. In fact, it would have been my favourite Bond film, period, at one point. But this is another film that I feel hasn't quite aged as well as one would hope. There's still stuff in it that works really well. Where Tomorrow Never Dies fails, this succeeds. It has brilliant villains in it. The whole roster of villains in this, with the exception of Boris, who's just annoying, are really great. Real, like, top tier, standout Bond villains. Love them. There's 3 main villains in it, and I love all 3 of them. Love the dynamic between them and how they work together, and the performances, and particularly Xenia on top. Just absolute off the wall, crazy, Bond villain. Just brilliant role for Famke Janssen. Some of the action sequences are really great when they're practical. So the tank sequence is a fantastic chase sequence, and then the end fight between Bond and 006, Alec Trevelyan, is great. It's one of the best fight scenes throughout the whole Bond franchise. And if you can get hold of the extended cut that seemed to air on ITV back in the 90s, that had stuff in it that wasn't in the theatrical cut, bizarrely, then yeah, get your hands on it, because those fight sequences are a little bit longer, a little bit more brutal. It's a lot of the other action sequences that today have not aged very well, because it's all model work and you can tell. So, you know, again, doing a flip with Tomorrow Never Dies, a lot of the strengths of Tomorrow Never Dies are the weaknesses of Goldeneye. You know, like Tomorrow Never Dies has really good practical effects, big action sequences in which, you know, explosions were done on real kind of buildings and planes and this, that and the other. Whereas here, it's so much model work going on, it's just like, it really dampens the impact of those action sequences. Maybe not back in the 90s, mid-90s when it came out, but certainly now, yeah, not aged particularly well. Still a great Bond film, still a top tier Bond film, one of the best Bond films, but it's mostly because the villains are so good and Pierce Brosnan is really great in his first outing as 007. Which of course means that my number one choice is The World Is Not Enough. Perhaps, well, no doubt about it actually, for me, it is the most underrated Bond film. Never understood the criticism for this film. As I say, check out my review if you want to know the full extent of why that is. But a lot of the criticisms with Denise Richards, to me, just don't hold up when you actually think about what people are criticising. It's nonsense. I think this has one of the best stories and character developed stories of any Bond film. I think the character development in this is great. The villains are fantastic because of that. You actually feel for the villains, you're actually invested in the story because of the characters and the way they're built up. It kind of reminds me of The Dark Knight Rises. I can see a lot of elements that Nolan took in The Dark Knight Rises within The World Is Not Enough. Again, check out my review if you want to know what they are. But yeah, I think this is a brilliant Bond film, top tier Bond film. Don't understand the criticism. For me, it's Brosnan's best. Clearly, because I've just put it at number one. But what about you? That is my ranking of Brosnan's Bond films. What are yours? Please do leave them down below. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.